Law school admissions is not what you think it is. There's a lot of misinformation and mythology out there about the process, a lot of outdated information floating around. Today, I'm going to break down for you some of these common misconceptions and what you need to change about your understanding of the law school admissions process and your LSAT preparation in particular. For those who don't know me, my name is Steve Schwartz. I've been teaching the LSAT since 2005, and I've personally increased my LSAT score from a 152 to a 175. Let me say, first and foremost, the number one factor in the law school admissions process is the LSAT. It's not your GPA. It's not your application essays. It's not your resume. So when I hear from students asking me, should I get a job as a paralegal? Should I get an internship? Should I retake classes from undergrad in some misguided attempt to boost my undergraduate GPA? My question is, are you done with the LSAT and have you achieved an LSAT score higher than the medians of the schools you are applying to? If the answer is no, then no, full stop. Focus on the LSAT. You can barely make a dent in your undergraduate GPA if you've already completed undergrad or if you're a senior in college. Retaking a single class from all 4 years of undergrad is going to maybe move your GPA by 1 or 2%. It's not going to have a significant impact. And of course, it's nice if you have some work experience on your resume related to the legal field, but ultimately, law schools are not evaluated based on that metric. If we look at law schools' incentives, if we look at things from their perspective, we've got to recognize that law schools care about their numbers, and those numbers in turn are pulled by US News for inclusion in the ever important US News law school rankings. So law schools want to know, do you have a high LSAT score? Do you have a high GPA? And are you likely to pass the bar exam and get a good job upon graduating? That's what they are looking at. And of course, LSAT is bigger than GPA in the admissions process. If you look at law schools' published admissions indices, the formulas for how they weigh LSAT relative to GPA, you're going to see that nearly every single one weighs your LSAT score more heavily, which makes sense because although there has been plenty of LSAT score inflation over the past 4 years or so, there is even more undergraduate GPA inflation because grade inflation is rampant at colleges and universities across North America, especially for those in the humanities majors. There's tons of grade inflation. I've seen it myself, professors who don't believe in grades, so they just give everybody A's, classes that are not curved, meaning everybody can get an A potentially, which makes, of course, the A meaningless overall, but that is what LSAC pulls from when calculating your LSAC GPA. So that's the deal. If we look at the T14 law schools, they all have GPA medians of 3.8 to 3.9, meaning if you are below a 3.8 and you want to go to a T14 law school, you're going to have to balance it out with a really high LSAT score. And when I say really high, I mean really high. If we look at the T14 LSAT medians, all of them have medians for the LSAT of 170 to 175, meaning if your GPA is below a 3.8, you want to have closer to a 175 to counteract it. So when you think about, should I work on my personal statement? Should I get a job in the legal field as a paralegal? Should I get an internship? Should I maybe retake classes from undergrad? I'm like, well, you need to have a 173 ideally or above to have a reasonable shot at the T14. And you've also got to remember that even a T14 law school with an LSAT median of 173, that was the median for last year's entering class. Every law school wants to raise their medians. So what got you in last year may not be enough to get you in this year. If last year their median was a 173, next year it could be a 174 or higher, because there is tons of LSAT score inflation for a couple of reasons. LSAT medians have risen significantly over the past few years. There's been a lot of LSAT inflation over the past few years because of that temporary LSAT flex format at the beginning of the pandemic. That was an easier format with only 3 sections, no extra unscored experimental section. LSAC underestimated just how much easier it would be to take the LSAT from home in a shorter format, and they messed up the curve as a result of that. Too many students got high scores, and LSAC may be looking to compensate for that going forward by making the curve a little bit tougher, but even that may not make that much of a dent because of the second reason for LSAT score inflation, which is that it's become much easier to get accommodations for things like extra time. It used to be that 70% of those requesting extra time accommodations got them. Now 98% of those requesting accommodations get what they're asking for. Again, that's 98%. Virtually every single person applying is getting them. So students are getting time and a half, double time, triple time, or more simply for asking, simply for getting that doctor's note. And so this is probably the biggest reason for rising LSAT medians. There's a third reason, however, which is that it's become a lot easier to retake the LSAT. It used to be that you could only take it 4 times per year: February, June, September or October, and December. Now the LSAT is offered double the number of times per year, 8 times rather than 4. At minimum, the LSAT is offered 4 consecutive months coming up this calendar year: August, September, October, and November. You could take any of those exams. You could take all of those exams. The LSAT retake limits are simply that you cannot take it more than 5 times in 5 years, or 7 times for life. If you get a 180, you can't take it again. But going forward, for the vast majority of people, you could take it in August and September if you'd like. And I recommend that you retake the LSAT at least once, for the simple reason that law schools do not average multiple LSAT scores, but rather they only take the highest score. So let's say your PT average is a 170, you're hoping for a 170, and you get a 170 on the August LSAT. You don't need to stop there. You could then retake the LSAT in September or October or even November, and maybe through luck alone, you score a few points higher, get a 173. You're now applying with a 173, and if you don't score higher, no big deal, because law schools only consider the highest LSAT score on record, because that's all they have the incentive to care about, since that highest score on record is what goes to the American Bar Association, which is where US News pulls from in creating the ever important US News law school rankings. And so I recommend everyone retake the LSAT for the simple reason that there is no downside to retaking it, and retaking the LSAT, getting a higher score, is the biggest impact you can have on your law school admissions chances. It's the biggest impact you can have on determining the trajectory of your legal career going forward. Now, if you'd like my help on your journey to scoring a 170 or above, you can check out the links below to find out more about what we offer and to book a call with me and my team. We'd be glad to help you out. If you're at the 165 mark, looking to break into the 170s, oftentimes at this point, it's not about the question stem type in logical reasoning, for example, but rather it's about the method of reasoning in the stimulus. And so the Socratic review method is the best way for pinpointing exactly what mistakes you're making and why, where your misunderstandings are coming from. And so wherever you're at in your prep, make sure that you are leveling up the depth of your review process, that you're not using explanations as a crutch, that you're not just saying to yourself, oh, after seeing the answer key, oh, I get it now. How could I have been so dumb? The answer makes perfect sense. If you're doing that in just a minute or two, you're not really learning the lesson that you could be learning from every question that you get wrong, because every question you get wrong is an opportunity to learn something new. As you may know by now, the LSAT repeats itself. And so you want to make sure that you are figuring out what mistakes you're making and why, so that, of course, you can avoid making them again. Anyway, folks, that's all for now. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.